Let's talk through and look at the last three landscapes by T.S. Eliot. 8, 9 days ago or so, we looked at the first two, New Hampshire and Virginia. Now let's look at Usk, Rannoch by Glencoe, and Cape Ann. Now, I talked about how these are lyrical, musical poems, and how Eliot talks about them like that. Actually, he says to a translator, "These are the most purely lyrical of my poems," and he means a few things. And it's kind of these terms in poetry can become quite vague, but he means that sound matters a lot, and musical experimentation sounds matters a lot. And one way to consider the five poems is as movements in a short piece of music. And this is something which Eliot pretty explicitly does in terms of how he frames the four quartets. His masterwork. Each of them is a quartet. It's a musical piece played by four instruments, and each has five movements, five subsections, I should say, cantos. But here you could say you've got an allegro vivace in New Hampshire, a very quick movement, followed by, I think, a largo perhaps with Virginia, and then we move into a slower section. Say Usk is a moderato, Rannoch by Glencoe, an adagio, and Cape Ann again at the end, an allegro. But we move into a slower section from via this long, slow Virginian thing into what is the heart of the poem. And New Hampshire has this reflection on childhood and the speed with which childhood disappears, and the sadness of it at some level. 20 years and the spring is over. He writes at this point, he is in his mid-40s. He writes the American sections on a return trip to America and in the mid-30s to see a lady friend, and Usk and Rannoch, who writes in Britain around the same time. So he goes back and he reflects on his childhood. Virginia has this slow reflection on, I guess, on the long processes of life, on memory. And then we return to Britain. And this is interesting the way it's set up, that he obviously intentionally lays these out like this. He doesn't kind of say, oh, well, we'll put the American ones all together. He puts Cape Ann, about his childhood summer home, at the end. Now here we have two British poems, both in the Celtic fringe, Usk in Wales and Rannoch by Glencoe in Scotland. And he says of Usk that it has to do, he says, and this is odd because it's not necessarily clear in every way how he means this, but that it has to do with things like the Mabinogion, the Welsh legends that connect into the Arthur legend. Usk, there's a few things here just to give background. The Hermit's Chapel, the Pilgrim's Prayer. Usk was associated with both these, or is associated with both these. The Hermit's Chapel, there may have been a hermit at the nearby village of Keames Commander, a medieval hermit. In the Pilgrim's Prayer, there's an odd story of a man being hanged down in South Wales who comes back to life. And the Lord who's hanged him, the Lord's wife, the hanged man, and others, come on a pilgrimage to Hereford in Western England because they believe that St. Thomas of Hereford has interceded for this miracle. And so Usk is associated with that as a pilgrim stop. So the Hermit's Chapel, the Pilgrim's Prayer, is talking about that. I'll read the poem. And then, so you can see this kind of like Arthurian background, Celtic fringe, medieval religiosity. Let's read. Do not suddenly break the branch or hope to find the white hart behind the white well. Glance aside, not for Lance. Do not spell old enchantments. Let them sleep, gently dip, but not too deep. Lift your eyes where the road dips and the road rise, where the roads rise. Seek only there, where the grey light meets the green air. The Hermit's Chapel, the Pilgrim's Prayer. So it's still very musical. We have a lot of, Eliot uses rhyme, both line-ending rhyme and internal rhyme, and various other kind of soundy tricks all the time. So this isn't like, he never does this. But it still continues to be as I say, a musical poem. We've had this almost exaggerated wing, cling, swing, spring, sing, swing business. And all these internal rhymes we've talked about here: wait, gates, wait, 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 delay, decay, living, living, moving, moving, things like that. River, 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 repetition. And here we have again, I think I said moderato in the sense that this is somewhere in the middle, tempo-wise, and it is in the middle of the poem. But you have your break the branch, which is a double alliteration because it's not just the b, it's also the r, bruh. Break the branch, or hope to find the white hart behind the white well. So you obviously have repetition, and you have internal rhyme there. And lots of kind of quite euphonious combinations, even where they're not rhymes, and yeah, some nice some nice stresses. Do not suddenly break the branch. You've got this quite euphonious line. Glance aside, not for Lance. Do not spell old enchantments. Do not spell means there. Disturb, I guess. And yeah, we have you let them sleep. There are old enchantments on this land, this Welsh land, this land of, in his mind and in Eliot's mind, Arthur and the Mabinogion, Taliesin. Now here's an interesting one. There is a well, and there is a sort of, I think, an unconvincing, ultimately, interpretation of the white hart behind the white well as about a pub that he would have seen in the 30s near the alleged site of the medieval well at Usk. I think the white hart here is, as it were, an Arthurian hart. It is something, a mythic figure, creature. But the well, certainly, yes, a pilgrim well. When you go there, do not spell the orange humps, let them sleep. Gently dip, but not too deep. This is actually not from the Mabinogion or Arthurian legend. This is from George Peele's Old Wives' Tale, a Elizabethan play from, I think, from the 1590s. It might be from the very late 1580s. And here there is a whole thing about, the two sisters, the nasty sister, who is beautiful in this case, and the lovely sister who is ugly. And the beautiful sister comes, and I assume it's the spirit of the well, the genius loci of the well, comes up and says, gently dip but not too deep, and says he'll be very nice and so on if she does, and then she's very nasty, and she doesn't get any water, and then the good sister comes and gets water. So there's this thing about coming humbly on this pilgrim's way. Don't disturb things. Don't expect things. Don't expect you'll see a white hart. And think Lewis trades on that image at the end of the Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe. This legendary creature. But instead, be gentle. Let the old enchantment sleep. Be gentle. And there's a thing here about the action and the result of action. Lewis talks about it in the quartets. He talks about it a little bit in the war poem, the short war poem to the Indians who died in Africa. Lift your eyes where the road dips and where the roads rise. So obviously we do have a rhyme there. But again, see, we again, repetition is a very common thing. White hart, white well. I was going to say we've got some line ending rhyme there to point out. In fact, if you look, we don't have a complete line ending thing all the way through here, but we have much more than we normally find in Eliot. Here, you can see we have this find behind, and then it becomes well spell here, or find internal rhyme behind, well spell sleep deep, eyes rise there, air prayer. We're geared as humans to listen to this and to think it's beautiful, but we come gently and humbly to this place, and there's an image here which is he's going to repeat in Rannoch in a very different way. Lift your eyes, so instead of expecting all these things, be gentle, be humble, and lift your eyes where the roads dip and where the roads rise. That's something to think it's on the horizon, because the road's going up and down. You're following this kind of line of the horizon, where the grey light meets the green air. That's an odd phrase, because you think the air and the light are the same thing, surely. But I think there's some way in which you're talking about the heavenlies and the light being filtered through cloud, perhaps the green air so close to the land, what for Lewis would be the sublunar realm, I suppose. There might be some sort of supralunar, sublunar combination here, but either way, at this liminal place where the roads dip and the roads rise at the edge of the land, we see a miracle, which is these earthly and very concrete places, the Hermit's Chapel, the Pilgrim's Prayer, which may point us to the old miracles, may point us to the White Hart, and certainly we are reminded of a legend of the genius loci, the spirit of this place. But that is where we'll find it. We are slowed down after the sad remembrance of childhood and the consideration of memory in early adulthood and of the way in which things seem to decay and tend to entropy. And then we are given a transcendent and numinous moment. But there is a different kind of journey, a different kind of pilgrimage that can be made. Glencoe, the relevant thing here is that Glencoe is the site of the Glencoe massacre between different factions in Scotland in the late 17th century. Here the crow starves, here the patient stag breathes for the rifle. Between the soft moor and the soft sky, scarcely room to leap or soar. Substance crumbles in the thin air, moon cold or moon hot. The road winds in, listlessness of ancient war, languor of broken steel, clamour of confused wrong, apt in silence. Pride snapped. Shadow of pride is long, in the long pass, no concurrence of bone. So here there's magic. There are old enchantments we're to not disturb this Celtic landscape, and there is a religious experience available. Here we have a different kind of result of action or inaction. There, sanctified by faith. Here, full of violence. Here, the crow starves, there's no food. The patient's stag is breeding for the rifle. There's no room to leap or soar. The crow can't soar, and the stag can't leap. It's a place of death and decay. Substance itself crumbles. Not substances, not trees or bones, but substance itself crumbles in a thin air. And the road, again, we've got a road. This is actually taking us, as I say, as I've kind of said, we have some parallels here. The road takes us back to there, just as between the soft moor and the soft sky takes us back to there. This is a repetition of a motif. It is remodulated, it is variated, but this is musical. This is the point I was making, that there is a musicality between, a musical kind of set of devices between these two movements, which are slower. They're not as slow as Virginia, but they are slow. In the same, I'd say, at some level, you can read anything quickly and anything slowly. Red River, slow flow, heater, silence, cling, swing. You can read things slowly or quickly, but you're generally guided by punctuation, the poetic punctuation of where the line ends and how punctuation is used within the verse, enjambment, or is it internal comma, line end comma, full stop, semicolon, things like that. And also by the way the sounds are, the kind of the speed here, golden head, black wing, cling, swing, spring, sing, is a lot more natural than something much slower. River, those only two syllables, it has a long rib. You have to say a fairly long v. To fully sound it is quite a long two syllable. This is a thing, by the way, that English, technically, we would say it's not a stressed language, so, it's not an inflected language, so you don't have these even lengths of syllable, which is what you do in Greek and Latin, is you kind of have, this is where dactyls and spondees and stuff we talked about before actually come from, is the fact you can reliably have long and short syllables, which get stressed or unstressed in particular ways. There's an emphasis on them in particular ways. In English, we don't really have long, short syllables because a syllable can be different lengths depending on its context. But we do have stresses. But actually, there is a degree to which there is such a thing as syllable length in English, and you just try to say words. Silence. I mean, can you say it very quickly? Silence. Slints. To properly sound it becomes long because sigh involves the long I rather than ear, and lents, again, it ends up is often quite a long sound. Anyway, that's a tangent but a relevant one, that Eliot can't use strict tempo of a time signature and beats per bar to tell us what to do. Instead, how quick or slow is it? But he can use sound. And these are slightly faster than Virginia, which is the sudden adult realization of decay, but they are still slow. And leap or soar, leap, soar, soar particularly is a long word for one syllable. Substance, three s in there. Repetition, I think, isn't always slow, but where separated creates a certain natural rhythm. Moon cold or moon hot. The road winds in listlessness of ancient war. This won't just refer to the massacre, but we're going to particularly think of the massacre here. This is not just a place of animal death and decay. It's not just a place of, well, substance crumbling seems worse than humans crumbling, though I'm not sure Eliot would have agreed, but substance itself seems to crumble in the thin air. I should say air, of course, does come to there. But languor of broken steel, clamour of confused wrong, apt in silence. It's a silent place, and it seems better that way as he looks around the memories of violence. Memory is strong beyond the bone, It's not simply what happened then, but what happened now. Resentment still lives. You hear it in political discourse. I mean, not just to Scotland, but anywhere. We remember what's gone wrong as well as what's gone right. But that often these people did this, or we're very angry at this. Long beyond any remedy. There's a common human experience. So memory is strong beyond the bone. Strong is a half rhyme with beyond. Beyond and bone is an alliteration. Pride snapped. Shadow of pride is long. Long, strong, and repetition, repetition. Pride and bone have the same sonic format as well, and they're both these single syllable words with, that essentially the vowel dash e, bone, pride. Bone is softer because it's softer than d, but still similarities in the long pass, no concurrence, pass, concurrence of bone. So, but when pride itself is gone, the shadow of pride is long. Where the idea that memory continues beyond what's happened before, and this goes back to Virginia, of course, memory. It also goes back to Usk with the positive memories. It's Chapel, the Pilgrim's Prayer. So we have action and inaction. We have the humble action and the violent action here. And we have the kind of images pointing us towards that. So we start to see bigger themes here. It's not just, oh, this is very nice. I think Eliot underrates himself if he were to merely say it was lyrical. I don't think he says it's merely lyrical, but there is a theme and there is a purpose to the music. Childhood, early adult, reflection on decay and death as you begin to realize your immortality, and then reflection on action, inaction. In fact, a certain kind of inaction can become a positive action in Usk. In Rannoch by Glencoe, there is no longer space for action because action has led to death and decay. And then we return at the end to New England, to the a kind of a thing. This idea of return. Think about some of the language in Ash Wednesday. Think about Little Gidding. This return, and think about East Coker. His poem about his visit. Well, it's not about his visit to his ancestral homeland in Sussex, but that East Coker is his ancestral homeland in Sussex. He goes there, and so this idea of return is common in Eliot. So he says, "Oh, quick, 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 hear the song sparrow, swamp sparrow, fox sparrow, vesper sparrow, at dawn and dusk. Follow the dance of the goldfinch at noon. Leave to chance the blackburnian warbler, the shy one. Hail with shrill whistle the note of the quail, the bob white dodging by baybush. Follow the feet of the walker, the water thrush. Follow the flight of the dancing arrow, the purple martin. Greet in silence the bullbat. All are delectable. Sweet, sweet, sweet. But resign this land at the end. Resign it to its true owner, the tough one, the seagull. The palaver is finished. An interesting thing here, by the way, you may note, is that the only stanza break in the whole of the landscapes is here. So we do actually have a formal ending, the palaver, discussion, talk. And here it should make us think immediately of the birds which were in New Hampshire. So, I mean, that's, mark them going. There are all these birds, this vast catalogue of birds, this Audubonian list of American birds, goes all the way to the beginning where birds were seen as an image of childhood, much like apples were, and they were gone. Here, there are so many birds, and at the end there is a bird. The seagull owns everything. Cape Ann, I think, is the most ambiguous of these poems. I don't think it's impossible to engage with, meaning-wise, and certainly not poetically. Poetically is fun. It's not my favourite of the five, but poetically, it is delightful. All are delectable is something he's going after with a feel. The water thrush, the bay bush, the quail, the Blackburnian warbler. There's a delight here in names and in sounds. Onomosis, we'll say. And I think if you're trying to make a terribly depressing poem, you can do it by talking about nice things and then subverting it. And there's a tiny bit of that in New Hampshire. Golden head, crimson head, between the green tip and the root, black wing, brown wing, hover over. Except here, though colourful, those aren't delighting phrases. Golden head, crimson head. They're kind of pretty, but they are, this idea of the vesper sparrow at dawn and dusk. Follow the dance of the goldfinch at noon. We're meant to delight in this. This is meant to be delectable. Obviously, delect and delight related. Sweet, 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 both sweet apples above, but also even the sweetness of birdsong, the sweetness of singing them, but also that sweet sounds like tweet. It's the sound of a bird singing. We have not just onomosis, but onomatopoeia here. And all these lovely, lovely birds. What is odd is sweet, 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 but resign this land at the end, resign it to its true owner, the tough one, the seagull. You want to notice, by the way, there's a lot of repetition. Quick, 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 quick. Here the song sparrow, fox sparrow, vesper sparrow, swamp sparrow. Dawn and dusk is, though a normal phrase, is alliterative. Follow the dance of the goldfinch at noon. Dawn and dusk and noon are three cardinal points in the day. Leave to chance, chance dance. Hail, what a strong start to a new phrase, except here the way the poetic punctuation happens. The Blackburnian warbler, the shy one. Hail, pause, as in there's a breath there. Hail, with shrill whistle, the note of the quail. And we're told that because of the enjambment here. We stop to go to the next line. Hail with shrill whistle. We don't say hail with shrill whistle, flowing on. We just have that half second, a quarter second pause. Hail, quail, bush, thrush, assonant, walker, water, half rhyme, flight, greet, sweet, feet, white. So you both have rhymes. So I will quickly. This is not the A, you understand, but A, B, A, B, B. Yeah, here, but you have an A, B, A, B, B, and then a kind of B, A, it, sweet, it is a half rhyme there to the B. But white, feet, flight, greet, sweet, it. Actually, they're all sort of half rhymes of each other, aren't they? And there is a relentlessness there. And now, it's intentional, therefore, that this last line end does not rhyme with resign, or it, or sweet, or greet, or flight, or feet, or white, or hail, or chance, or dance, or sparrow, or sparrow. Now, you could say that the word that and the rhyme that is unpaired otherwise is hail. I think that's reasonable, but hail and gull are not rhymes. They're not even a half rhyme because they're faintly assonant, very faintly. But what you could say is that they both have this sort of musical inflection to them. Hail with shrill whistle, the note of the quail, and then at the end, the seagull is the one left over. And the palaver is finished. And of course, that is an independent, standalone line, and there's no rhyme for it, and there's no particular assonance for it, and it is broken by the stanza. You pause. You don't just pause for a quarter second or a half second. You pause for a second. To its true owner, the tough one, the seagull, the palaver is finished. Do we end up here at death? Perhaps is there something about the delight in life, followed by the inevitability of death? And here, this is a much calmer. Here, the idea of grief. 20 years, the spring is over. Suddenly it is the summer of Virginia. Obviously, Usk is an autumn poem. It really feels like an early autumn poem. Perhaps Rannoch by Glencoe might be an autumn poem, but and there's some sense that things could be hot here, but this crumbling place of death is very wintry. We have seasons here in a way that you touch on actually with the four quartets are seasonal. They are spring to winter. You have the growth of plants in Burnt Norton. East Coker, he arrives at East Coker to see the ghosts in summer. The Dry Salvages or Dry Sauvages is an autumnal storm poem, and Midwinter Spring is Little Gidding's geographic setting, as in where Little Gidding is when he visits. Rannoch by Glencoe then seems wintry. Cape Ann, we return to spring. It's a bird poem. Very messily, just write that. Spring 2. And it's got birds in it. Birds again. Birds 2. But here, there's no grief. You delight in everything. But at the end, you resign the land. This land. And he resigned New England. He returned back to England. So there is also a temporal meaning for him. It's not his home anymore. The place he loved, he grew up with his, going boating and spending time with his father and mother. That's no longer home. But the fact the seagull is the owner is to do with these other birds as well. All the delights of life, you end up with the tough, sturdy, relentless seagull. And perhaps there is a reconciliation with the passing of time, decay, death, disappointment. And that means you don't have to talk anymore, both because death is an end, but also because resolution is an end of a sort. You can move on to something else. So yeah, I think these are wonderful poems. I recommend just reading them for delight, but also I do think there are some things going on that are worth paying attention to and coming back to. And I think there is a theme that runs through them, which many of us who like poetry could enjoy and engage with. But yes, that's my thoughts. I don't know if you have any thoughts. If you do, please put them in the comments, and I'll see you next time.